Does it show it's recording for you guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I just covered chapters 11 and 12. And so my first question is going to be, in chapter 11, Grinker talks about how Korean doctors often diagnose children with RAD. And do you guys remember what that is? The reactive attachment disorder?
Yeah.
Rather than autism, invoking blame on the mother for their child's behavior. Why do the doctors prefer to diagnose and place blame on the mothers instead of considering autism?
I think that's pretty simple. I mean, doctors don't like to admit when they don't know something. So, and because, even then, back then, it's the whole discovery of the brain aspects. Like, they definitely didn't know as much as we know now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just easier to place the blame, vaccines or shots, or you got a cold while you're pregnant.
Yeah.
It was just easier to place blame on someone than say that they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Plus, I feel like.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I feel like in one of our last discussions, we also talked about them, like, they would always, like, push off diagnosis, too, just because they didn't know, like, what the next steps were, like, technically how to, like, treat autism, I guess. So I feel like it's easier for them to place the blame on a different, like, condition or a person or something if they're like, oh, this is easier for me to, like, explain what to do next, rather than go, well, your kid has autism and here's this whole world of, like, we don't have any research on it, so can't really help you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
I think it's like almost like laziness in a way. Like no one just really wants to take the time to like really figure out what's going on, and it's terrible that like that they put that much stress on like mothers and like blame them for that. But in their eyes, it's just easier for them. And it's selfish in that way. But
No, and in the book it was saying like in Korea, they look at autism as like their life is over. And so I just think that's a lot of the reason why they misdiagnose, just so they can say, oh, it's something that isn't permanent and they can overcome it. And I don't know. The chapters we read were pretty crazy.
yeah.
The Asian cultures in general, not to like bash on anything, but like even in China, it's kind of difficult like to be different and not perform well. It's kind of like a shameful on the family. So like
Yeah, I remember it mentioning like how we like here we just like value diversity way more than countries like that.
Yeah. Which is crazy because I feel like America is so judgmental, but I mean, compared to some other countries, it's like, oh, okay, maybe we're not that off. All right. So my second question was, in Korea, children are made to spend almost all of their time on school and studies, competing to get spots in after-school programs. Why do you think Korea has such high expectations for success rather than knowledge? What message does this give in regards to parents with children of autism?
That their kid doesn't matter as much as the rest, because they struggle already, and because academia is so high, in general they already struggle, and the kids that maybe not book smart but like sports smart, they're valued less, and so add autism to the mix and you have no clue what their strengths and weaknesses are. They get like a whole nother like version of bulliness almost kind of from that because they may not succeed at academic like other kids do they're at their age. And I don't really know exactly how to answer that except to like do a story to maybe add on to it. But
I think their passion for success and wealth just overrides other important things in life, like relationships with their family and friends, and like even just like everyday little activities that kind of like push for happiness and independence. Like it seems like they're not really focused on that as much, and like that obviously can put a lot of stress on parents of children with autism, because it like gives them that message that their child like won't ever be good enough and like will never be able to do the things that anyone else can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Plus, I feel like their just whole culture of like trying to value success over like actually gaining knowledge or developing or whatever you want to say, I feel like that is just going to hinder like their view of their kid, because they're going to realize like, oh, like you already struggle, we can't ever get you to like be perfect, I guess, in their eyes. So they're just going to like already see it as a failure and not want to like try. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. That sounded kind of harsh, but
no, it's true. In their culture, it's how they see things.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Like, I've even had kids, when I worked with kids, I don't know if she was like from Korea, but she was part of like the Asian culture, you know, and her mom would have her do these workbooks even right after school, like all this homework, and they'd be levels like way ahead of her, but her mom wanted her to be book smart and succeed. And it's just like, even in America, they bring it over here. And like, I don't know, that's just a crazy mindset to have.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then in chapter 12, Sung-hee talks about how she ultimately hides the fact that she has a third child, which is her son with autism. She stated that if anyone knew of her son, it could ruin her other children's chances at marriage, and she often locks him in his room when visitors come. How do these beliefs I'm pretty sure this was in South Africa. I couldn't understand quite the location they were talking about, but they mentioned South Africa. But how do these beliefs in South Africa differ from those in America? What do you think the consequences of... Where did it go? What the heck? Hold on, I'm sorry. What do you think the consequences of that thinking would be if it was here instead of in those countries?
I think that like obviously we don't see autism as such like a negative thing anymore, like they might, and like families aren't like affected in that way, because here in America we've like educated ourselves on like what it means to have autism and like what it looks like, and like we've created so many like resources and like programs for people. So like the fact that they still have to like, or like, what's her name? I can't really pronounce it, but she has to like hide her third child. Yeah. Like I just can't even imagine it like still being like that here, and like the pain that she must be going through. Just like thinking that like, because she loves like all of her children the same, but like others will never do that.
Which is horrible.
Yeah. I also feel like, I don't know, just the part where it's like scared that like her like she's more scared for her other kids than for like her autistic child like himself, which I feel like is just blows my mind, because I feel like even here sometimes we have like those families where the parents will be like, don't necessarily see their child with autism the same as the other ones. I think that that's kind of something that happens everywhere, but the fact that she's more concerned about her other kids like not getting married or not being viewed the same because they have a sibling or they're related to someone that's on the spectrum is just, I think that just blows my mind. And I can't ever see something like, well, I don't know, maybe someone here, but I feel like if anything, at least from like what I've seen and like the people I've met, they're like more proud than anything that they like are related to someone who is on the spectrum, and being able to see like all the good things that they bring like to their life and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's all about social standing, I feel like, in those, and I don't hate to sound like those countries, but it's all about where you are. And you know, children and people with disabilities sometimes are frowned upon and right going up in culture. You know that, you know, back in the medieval times, they would be the called freaks. They'd be the ones who were beggars and hide, you know, like And the Hunchback of Notre Dame, he hid in the clock tower, and I
Yeah.
think, it's still kind of, I feel like in some countries still kind of like that to an extent, and so people are ashamed of the fact that their child has this disability or this setback, and they hide them and push the others to succeed more, like to compensate basically for what the other's missing
Mhm.
to an extent.
It's just crazy to me that they feel like a child with autism like has that much impact on their like society, and on even they mentioned how like the property prices would go down or something if like people knew that that child lived there. It's just crazy that they hold such high standards that like a human being can't have differences without it affecting things like marriage and money, and I don't know. And I just feel like if someone in America, I'm sure that there is someone who does this, but like hiding their kids when there is company over, like I don't know, that would just be looked at as so bad if it were to happen here. But that's like
Mhm.
normal for them.
Yeah.
It would
That's
be
almost like Harry Potter level like abuse. Like that is like
Literally.
so bad. Like I feel like if I heard of a situation like that, I would just be like, is there someone we can tell about this? Like, like it
Literally.
almost just is like, yeah.
No one, just knowing the siblings like don't like their brother either, and even a lot of the fathers in those stories wanted nothing to do with their autistic son, and it's just like, how is it normal to like disown your own child? Like I
Well,
don't
I
know.
mean, it's like if you have a daughter and not a son.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that is a good correlation. I my father served in Korea in the Korean War, and he told me that like mothers that had children that were disabled in any way, they would walk up on this at this time in the 40s. They would walk up on a bridge, and when they would walk off the bridge, they didn't have the baby with them anymore. And it was such a social stigma at that time. I'm sure it's gotten better, but at that time that, they just felt it would be better to get rid of the child. But he said it was near an area that he served, and he said it just like sickened him. And
Yeah.
but yeah, but I don't see it to that degree in America, and I think that you would be somewhat shamed. But I have seen it in some of the parents that I worked with. Like we had twins, and one twin wasn't he was a little delayed, but he wasn't autistic, and the other twin was, and it was like the dad was kind of expecting our program to make him not autistic somehow so that he could
Fix him.
yeah, like his mother. And I know that like the mom was really, really loving and supporting, but the dad really wasn't. And he would, they would do things like, the one that wasn't as delayed would get to go on adventures with dad, but the other one didn't. So mom would go and take him, but it's still kind of like he wanted to be his brother really bad. So he would take his glass. They were identical twins, but he would take his glasses off and go in his brother's room and tell the teacher that he was his brother and things like that.
What
Yeah.
What was the age group, Donna, that you were that they were?
It was first grade to 5th. I had him.
Okay. Could it have been maybe the fact that, I mean, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, especially if you have no experience whatsoever with anyone with a disability. Do you think it might have been partially that he didn't know how to comprehend it, and so he acted that way?
I believe that was it. They weren't like anywhere near being I mean, they were loving, providing parents. They weren't in any way being intentionally being abusive, but I know that it had an effect on the little boy that I worked with. And he would say all the time, or if we were drawing a picture of ourselves, he would say, I'm going to draw me like my brother, because I want to be my brother.
Oh.
I want to look just like him. And I said, well, you can't look any more like him. You're his twin. You look exactly the same. There was slight differences, but they really did look identical. But I kind of knew that it was from maybe the dad's inexperience, with or understanding of autism. So
That's sad though, because obviously the boy, like, even though he was autistic, he was aware of things, and so he was probably aware that dad didn't want anything really to do with him as much as his brother, and that's just that breaks my heart.
Yeah. And other than that, they were very well taken care of and cared for and financially supported, and that it was just kind of odd. And mom was a very sweet and easygoing person, and she just tried to compensate for it rather than make a change.
Right.
And then on the other hand, there's a mom, and she's from a different country. She's a refugee, and they're not from Africa, but like, she brings her little boy, and he's doing so much better in the program. But, of course, because he's autistic, he doesn't like to move from one situation to the other. So he doesn't like to go from home to school. And, she'll say things like, well, why can't my son just stay home and have fun? He's happy there. Why do I have to bring him to school? And, he is so happy at school. He goes around singing all the time. He sings all the songs from music, and he still sings Christmas songs because he learned them last year from music. But, he's happy the whole time he's there. So it's just this, perception that a child with autism would just be better off at home being happy. And you see that influence of the culture in that situation.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So I don't know when you joined, but did you want me to ask you the other questions, or do you want me to just continue?
You can just continue. I seem to have trouble when the link doesn't come through email. So,
okay, well, I'm sorry. I will definitely.
No.
This time.
I should be able to know how to get on the link.
No, it's all confusing.
I'll do that for the next 2 meetings since I run the next 2. So I'll send an invite via text and email, because for me, I have to. It's on my computer.
I tried to get on my phone, and it just wouldn't do it. And then I'm just, trying to find Zoom. I'm really not that bad.
Well, I'm glad you showed up.
But in this situation, I guess.
All right. Well, I have one more question that I do talk about.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. You can continue.
Oh no, I would.
The things are so delayed. It's hard for me to when someone's talking.
I know.
I'm like, I'm not interrupting you, I swear. Okay. So at the end of chapter 12, it is mentioned that the Malal school had went from a hidden, disgraceful special needs school to being a jewel in the Ilwan Dong, I'm sorry, these names, Ilwan Dong neighborhood a decade later. What do you think sparked this revolution of acceptance over 10 years of having this school open? And this is in Korea, so we can think about their culture, but yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, just right off the bat, I just feel like it took so long for like even the US to start seeing autism as something that was normal and like not a bad thing. And so I feel like it makes sense that it took them so long, like a whole decade, to be like, oh, this is a great school. This is like like they're doing good things rather than, oh, this is where we send our like defective kids or the kids that aren't, you know what I mean, that don't, I don't know. I just feel like it, from what we've learned, at least even in with the lack of research for so long, and people didn't really know a lot about it, so it was so easy for people, I think, to just for so long sit around and be like it's a bad thing, it's not good, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like maybe it might have been like the people who were working at the school maybe realizing like how important of an issue it was to like focus on and educate the children with autism, and like maybe they were realizing just how popular it was after everyone being so afraid to not even tell anyone about it, like if their child was autistic. So like maybe just that realization that it's a lot more common than they thought it was.
Also, I think that, you know, with the coming about of the internet and things like that, people kind of became more all over the world, kind of became more connected, and would have an effect on seeing how the rest of the world sees it. So.
Yeah, with that school, it was just crazy to read that like they didn't want to open it at first because, you know, the neighbors in that neighborhood were like, no, I don't want my children seeing a child with autism. Which I'm like, what? I wonder like what it was that they thought autism looked like that they didn't want their children to see it. It just makes you wonder like what their mindset was or what they were taught about things like disabilities like that. But and like when they were building the school, they even said that they wanted to make it so no one could see in and like the kids couldn't see out, just so like people would feel safe with that in the neighborhood. And I'm just like, there are, you know, some autistic children and adults that have like aggression issues, but it just makes you wonder how they painted the picture, because if people were really like that afraid or did not want their kids to associate it with it whatsoever. All right. I don't know how to, I'm on my phone. I don't know how to check how long we've been recording. But
we won't be fully able to hit the full 30 minutes because we started a couple minutes late after 7.
Yeah,
and
I
then,
think we'll be fine. Because when I did it, I'm pretty sure when I led it, it was like a little less than 30 minutes, and I think we all still got full points.
Yeah.
Or at least I did, so.
Yeah, as long as we answered all the questions, I think.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything to add or talk about? So maybe we can make it a few more minutes.
well, we can talk about next book club. Do you guys want me to do you want to separate the 2 books, like 2 chapters, and put them together so like we do it all at one night, like an hour meeting, or would you want to do one chapter one and then another chapter later? Because that's how it's set up in the schedule.
Ooh, I wonder if she'd let us do one.
Yeah, because I think we're gonna get 2 grades for like.
Well, I would break it up. I would chop up the video in half and then.
Oh, but you would like turn them in. Oh.
Yeah, turn them in both in, and so that way you'd
Okay.
have that completely done.
I mean, I'd be willing to sit for longer. I don't know about you guys with your schedule, but I'm off in the evenings, so that would be fine with me.
I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, I think it depends on what week it is. It's not next week, but the week after, right?
It will
Okay.
be the 27th.
Okay, I'll check my work schedule just to make sure I'm not on again, and then
we can always adjust the day and time if need be, just so we can do an hour meeting.
Yeah, and we'd have to start a new
that's a good
Zoom
idea.
anyway because it only lets us do 40 minutes, I think, at a time. So we just finish one, go to the next link and click start that, and then. But
yeah,
it was
that'd
just
be
an
awesome.
idea that I had this morning. I was just like, well, we're used to doing multiple chapters at once. Like,
It was weird to me that it had 2 separated. I was like,
maybe it has two separate type of, story
Storylines, yeah.
line. Mhm.
But yeah, I am definitely okay with doing 2 and 1.
Works for me.
We'll see about schedules and stuff, and then we'll try and plan accordingly for that week then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm free every evening because that's,
Cool.
all my classes are online, so I'm pretty open. I work in the
Cool.
day. So,
All right, guys. Well, then I'm going to stop recording